All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Give me a touch on the top prop bets on this Wednesday on both PrizePicks and Underdog. Let's go in and get into it. But first, just a quick recap from yesterday. Guys, yesterday, not a good day with the tacos going 1 for 3. That will happen occasionally. Do not let that discourage you guys. Still, the tacos are always going to be like the best bets that we have available on the day. You should always still be using those. So don't be discouraged by that. The bet of the day did go 3 for 6 as well. So kind of just the off day as a whole. But I want to call it this prop bet here because I saw a lot of people on Twitter like saying that they wanted to reboot because they betted his over fantasy score, or just over strikeouts and stuff, which was strange to me. Throughout the day, this was one of the better prop bets that we had on the board. Now that did end up flipping throughout the day. And what I mean by flipping is that I think because the public was betting on him so much, probably to get his over pitching strikeout props and whatnot, that naturally then raised his fantasy score, because this went up by like 3 points throughout the day, which doesn't really happen. But I think that's a good call for pitching fantasy score, because let's say he's gets another out, maybe that's another quality start, gets another pitching strikeout, that can vastly change the line for a pitcher. And that's why some days we have massive edges on pitching, and some days it's a little bit hit or miss, which is kind of what happened yesterday. Just a little bit too many home runs given up by these two. Seemingly these two were going to get their over, it kind of seemed like the whole time. And then Tristan McKenzie was not able to finish his inning, which was unfortunate. Same thing with Crawford as well. Kind of like those days will happen. And so getting into the bets for today, guys, I'm going to be starting out with that updated beta version of the cheat sheet that, I did make available on the website. So if you guys want to check that out, you can. I do want to call it that this is a beta version. So again, like the normal version is still available on the website, which you guys can still use. And I'll reference that when we get into Underdog, because Underdog, we are getting a free square. But right now you can look at the beta version as well. So I am going to be using that right now. And so what we're going to notice is that we are getting a few good hitting fantasy score prop bets right now. Kyle Schwarber for over his hitting fantasy score is one that is seemingly going to be a good one. We have one good NBA bet, which is going to be Derek Lively for under his points. That one has about a 55% chance edge. But with that, guys, with us mostly having MLB prop bets, let's just go ahead and get into the MLB sheet so I can show that to you guys. And so looking at it right now, again, looking at Kyle Schwarber, we're seeing that this one does seem to be a pretty massive edge that we are getting. Project to get 3.8 at bats, nothing too crazy there. But the edge is going to be looking at his projection data and then looking at the average sportsbook line. Like those two are kind of telling us that the line that we're getting on PrizePicks is probably going to be a little bit too low. That's kind of two data points telling us one thing where PrizePicks is telling us the other. Then we look at Contreras and then Christian Yelich. I like the fact that we can stack those two together first and foremost. Again, same exact thing. It's like the average sportsbook line kind of has it more as a 50-50, but at 7 for his hitting fantasy score. Now, that can be the difference between a walk, a run, just one small thing. Like, yeah, let's say instead of getting a hit, he gets a walk. And so maybe he only gets to 6 for a PrizePicks line, but that is too low. Same thing for Christian Yelich as well. Now, this isn't the highest game total for them, 9, but not terrible as well. Like, we don't really care about that. So I would say if we're playing Contreras, we are also using Christian Yelich in that because it should correlate. Yelich potentially drives in Contreras. So I do like stacking those two together. So nice that we are getting 3 pretty good hitting fantasy score prop bets. And, if we look at in terms of where the data correlates, those are going to be some of our 3 best prop bets as well. From there, we got Eric Fetty here for over his pitching fantasy score. Not exactly a lock in though, but another strong one. Again, looking at it, we're going to see that the PrizePicks line at 25.5 does seem to be a little bit too low in comparison to the average projection, to the DVP projection, and to the average sportsbook line. So we got 3 data points that are really telling us that we like the over here. I will be interested to see what his line comes out to be on Underdog, but right now that's another good prop bet that we are getting. The only issue is that he's not projected to win, but it is a low game total, so that should mean good things for him as well. And so again, we have 4 really good MLB prop bets to start the day with on PrizePicks. If we take off the data correlates and maybe just get into more of the pitching side of it as well, let's do that, because we are getting some okay pitching props as well. Braxton Garrett for under his pitching fantasy score is decent. You're going to see Logan Gilbert, and this is one I want to call out, guys. This one is fascinating to me. So this is one where you have the potential to middle because of his line. So on Underdog, the line would be 31.5. That's a prop line difference of 3 points. And so the PrizePicks line being at 34.5 compared to Underdog, that's crazy. That's a whole strikeout. That's a whole inning pitched. That is a whole run given up. And for pitching fantasy score, that ends up being a very, very big edge. And so the data is kind of telling us that we probably do want to be favoring the under a little bit more here, but at the same time, the over on Underdog is also a decent line. Maybe it's the difference between like 1 out, pitching out. But that's certainly a fascinating line that we were getting. So I don't mind the idea of maybe potentially trying to run out a middle. But right now, the data is heavily favoring the under at 34.5. So it's unlikely that it gets the over 34.5. And then another one that kind of falls under that same category is going to be Dylan Cease. We look at his pitching fantasy score. This is a good over bet on Underdog. And on Underdog, we are getting some free squares. I shouldn't say that. We're getting a very discounted square that should be able to hit. And so let's go ahead and switch into that right now, get into the Underdog side of it. I guess I'll give you the prize picks by the day, and then we'll shift into Underdog because we are getting that free square. And so looking at it, guys, again, going with that good pitching fantasy score prop bet that we got, and then Logan Gilbert for under his fantasy score, knowing that we're probably going to also bet the over because, again, that middle should not be happening. That opportunity for a middle, stacking these two together, and then going with Kyle Schwarber for over his hitting fantasy score. A little bit of a game stack there as well. More hoping that game total of 9 is actually going to be higher than it is. So, not a terrible stack there as well. And so just a reminder to you guys, if you choose to use the Underdog line that I tossed out to you guys in the free square, use the promo code 905 if you guys have never signed up before. That's just an easy way to help out the channel. And right now, I do think it's worth calling out, and this shows to you guys, like right now, so this is the free square. They are doing up to 8 picks right now. Now, you shouldn't be doing that per se, but I want to call this out. So I'm just going to do some random bets here that you could toss in there. It doesn't really matter. So I want to get to 6 bets here because this is huge, and even a 5 slip bet as well. So right now, this pick 6 that we are getting on Underdog is kind of huge because it pays out 2.6x if you were to go 5 for 6. That is huge. Let's say we take off just, again, random prop bet. You do the flex slip, it pays 2.5x now. That is huge. That adds up. On PrizePicks, you're just doubling up. So these little slight differences that we can get now are pretty massive. So you wouldn't want to do a 4 slip bet. Now, some people might wonder, and I'm just doing random ones, should they do a 7 slip bet? Probably not. I don't think there's any need to do that, or even an 8 slip bet, because, guys, the amount of luck that goes into that with how limited this, I think the 8 slip bets are going to be limited. Like, we're not going to have this for that long. It might be a month. So, like, the long-term edge that we gain in doing a 6 slip bet on PrizePicks or now Underdog as well, the point of that is that in the long term, if you keep betting those, you're eventually going to hit one if you're making the correct decisions, making the best prop bets where we're getting edges on PrizePicks and Underdog. Given the time frame that we have with the pick 6, again, I think it's only going to be available for a month. You might not be able to kind of make up that difference because there is a lot of luck that goes into that. So probably stick to 6 slip insured bets. Those are phenomenal now, guys. If you want to do 5 slip insured bets as well, those are phenomenal as well now. Really should be taking advantage of those. So again, let's get into the top prop bets for today on Underdog. And so I do want to call it Dylan Cease. They did just bump up his line by 1 on Underdog. So it's no longer as good of a prop bet, but still a solid prop bet. So let's take a peek at some of the other good prop bets that we are getting with him now as well, or with Underdog as well. Some okay, hitting ones here. Brian Reynolds for over his hitting fantasy score is okay. Estrada is okay for over his hidden fantasy score. We got Nick for over his pitching fantasy score, a decent one there. I wouldn't say it's a lock and load, so it is a tighter board right now on Underdog. A lot of decent, I would say, hitting fantasy score prop bets, but nothing too crazy. So right now it's probably Dylan Cease and then Nick for over his pitching fantasy score in terms of MLB prop bets that we are getting. Now, I'm a little bit annoyed by PrizePicks for not giving us any PGA props just yet, because I was hoping that we could potentially just use that free square that we are getting on PrizePicks or on Underdog. And again, discount square. I don't want to say free square. With some sort of middling opportunity that we might have had with the golf props that we are getting. So let's call it out though. Like right now, this is definitely interesting. The lines that we are getting for birdies or better, 4.5 birdies or better is a lot for these players to get. And the wind on Thursday is supposed to be the most windy it's going to be throughout the week as well. Now, I want to show you guys this on the PrizePicks cheat sheet. Again, this is in beta, but part of what I've added in there, and again, we don't have any lines available just yet, but looking at it, guys, like this is kind of why I wanted to add it in there. So the average birdies that is scored on this track is about 3 per round for golfers. And so the fact that we're getting some of these guys at 1.5 higher than that is pretty crazy for the birdies or better. And so Yes, Rory's one of the best golfers in the world and in the field this week. Same thing with Xander. A lot of people are expecting Hovland to still be hot from the PGA Championship. Hovland made some swing changes, though, which is why he played well at the PGA Championship. That's a very small sample size, so like I doubt he's going to be as sharp as that like in round one. Patrick Cantlay, probably a very good bet to bet the under birdies or better there as well. He's been a little bit inconsistent, and so really I could see betting these last three. Now JT's been a little bit like hit or miss in terms of how well he's playing, but like, man, for them to get 5 birdies, that seems pretty crazy to me as well. So I could see targeting those. And then from there, fantasy score wise, I don't think I want to touch any of the fantasy score prop bets. Now this field is much more condensed. It's supposed to be some of the top golfers in the world. So when we're looking like at the the scoring average of 73.5, the chances of that being the scoring average again this week is not as likely, because this week the field is like 70 players, whereas normally it'd be double that. So naturally you're going to get some worse golfers in the field. And so yes, this data is a little bit skewed because of that, which albeit I still think we're getting some edges by betting the unders for those birdies or better. And so right now I think I am leaning towards using the PGA props in a stack, but let's check and see if we are getting any good WNBA prop bets. And it doesn't seem like there's any worthwhile to attack in terms of gaining an edge on price or on Underdog. And then we look at Underdog for the NBA prop bets. Again, not really any that are going to be worthwhile in terms of us gaining an edge on Underdog. So I think I got the bet of the day for you guys here. And so getting into the Underdog bet of the day, again, we are going to use this free square with this. If you guys don't want to, I get that. It's kind of unfortunate that we can't use this pitching fantasy score with this. Kind of is what it is. And I do want to call it, when you pair these 3 PGA props together, it does slightly reduce the payout to be like a 2x instead of that 2.5x for a 5-slip bet. That's kind of okay, like whatever. The reason it's reduced is because we are saying that the course is going to play more difficult than Underdog is projecting. Thus, these bets are more likely to hit then. And again, the course is going to play most windy on Thursday. It seems like obviously it's weather that can change, but it did rain on Tuesday, so maybe that's part of the equation. Is that I don't want to get into golf stuff too much, but maybe that's part of the equation, that the greens are going to be a little bit softer on Thursday, and then progressively throughout the week the course is going to play more and more difficult. So maybe the setup's a little bit easier for Thursday, but for these guys to get 5 birdies or better, that seems unlikely given how the course is played in years past. So I'm fine with those bets, but I like pairing them together. If you guys only want to use one, I would probably go with Patrick Cantlay and then Dylan Cease. That's the best pitching fantasy score prop bet that we have. Unfortunate that it got bumped by 1 throughout this video. At 36.7, it was like a much better edge, but still not terrible. That's the difference between another out or not, which does make a difference. I'm not underselling that, but yes, we have 5 decent prop bets today. Very unfortunate, again, that one of the best ones that we have is also the discount square. But that's going to be all for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching. If you guys want access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. They are available for just $10 a month. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck today. And as always, let's keep cashing.